My name is Valerie Gregory. I've been a Catholic for 2, now moving into 3 years. It started at St. Gabe's, but the story really began when I was a child. Because I was raised High Church Episcopalian, which is Catholic light. Right. And then my mother, who was a closet Catholic, and the reason I say that, she collected rosaries and all sorts of things, icons. But I digress. Anyway, they put me in a parochial school, which was the best part of school ever. I mean, it was just really wonderful. Now, to begin with, I was the only Episcopalian, so I was sort of an outlier for sure. But Sister Claire was about 4'6", a tiny little woman that had such charisma. She was quite wonderful. I mean, now she was a disciplinarian, but she would have us go down for our naps, and she would crawl up on the desk and crow like a rooster to wake us up and so forth. And but initially I did present a problem because I was an Episcopalian, and for the first couple of days I didn't go to Mass, and then Sister Claire just said, okay, enough of this. Put a lace caplet on my head and took me in, and it made such a tremendous impression on me as a child. And I mean, it was just really quite wonderful. But the next year I was not there, so then we continued to be Episcopalian, and my family, will just say, went through some really hard times. And this was down in Alabama, by the way. And anyway, when it came time for confirmation, apparently what really brought me to the Catholic Church is, like, amazingly, when I was a child at 6 years old, my parents put me in a parochial school. And I always said my mother was a closet Catholic, because, I mean, I find rosaries all over the place, and statues of Mary. I mean, it's really quite remarkable. So anyway, I went to St. Paul's in Birmingham, Alabama, and it was great. Our first grade teacher was Sister Claire, who was probably all of 4'6". I mean, she wasn't much taller than us, right? And she was lovely, and I was the only Episcopalian in the school. So it was somewhat of a quandary. What do we do? So the first day, I think I had to wait somewhere while everybody was in Mass. So then Sister Claire put an end to that pretty quickly. She found a lace caplet, put it on my head, and away we went. And it was, that of course made a huge impression on me. And a funny story is during one of the saints' days, we had the bishop come in, and it was a long day of prayer, and there was this huge incense burners that the altar boys would just move to and fro to distribute the smoke and so forth. And I was on the outside aisle, and I was turning green, and this guy was a little mischievous. He saw I was turning green, so every time he came by, he made sure it went right under my nose. And the third time, I passed out. And I'll never forget waking up with Sister Claire with my little caplet, fanning my face. But that was a wonderful time in my childhood. Now, so I had an early introduction to Catholicism, but we continued to be Episcopalian. So the time came to be confirmed, and I knew the Bible backgrounds for at least Bible stories, because there again, Episcopalians don't necessarily teach you from at that time, wasn't for children, wasn't from the Bible, but we certainly Bible stories, let there be no doubt. And anyway, I wasn't allowed to participate because my parents hadn't paid whatever fee it was. And that really kind of upset me. It kind of turned me off a lot. And eventually, I started looking elsewhere, and I did do tarot. I was an astrologer for years, and did find Wicca for a little bit. And of course, you have to remember, I'm 69 years old, so this is like in the late 60s, 70s, and so forth. And then I became a Buddhist, but it's more of a lifestyle, and it still wasn't God. Because when you think about Buddhism, or at least from my perspective, Buddha, all right, regardless of you're an Indian Buddhist, Chinese Buddhist, Japanese Buddhist, it doesn't really matter. Buddha never sacrificed himself, right? Never. It's like if you're going to look for enlightenment, you have to look for me, and that was it. And Christ, God, had to give an example because he loved us so much. So that's truly compelling, right? And then when you feel that spirit, know that spirit, that's the most compelling thing of all, So, well, my life was empty, okay, because there was no answer, right? That's how I was feeling. So for 50 plus years, I was searching, let there be no doubt. And it took COVID, that was a blessing of COVID, quite frankly. And the blessing of all that turmoil is it woke me up, right? And helped me find God and the sustenance of God, who God is and who God will always be. God is always there, And the thing that really struck me is he took this broken person, and honey, you don't get much more broken than I was, and gave me life, gave me new life. And that's, so that's where I coined born again Catholic. So, because that's exactly how I feel. And that's been the greatest gift. And that's just simply the way it is. So my epiphany, right? So it took all of that turmoil, and the turmoil in my own life too, let there be no doubt, because it was certainly reflective of that, to make me ask, because I remember leaving work and just saying, God, what can I do? And I was walking out into an empty parking lot, and the wind suddenly picked up, and I looked up, and those clouds were literally swirling above my head. And I heard, come to me, you are forgiven. God spoke to me. And I just about hit the pavement. I mean, that's how profound it was. And I knew about St. Gabe's, but I was still a feminist. I'd had an abortion, which was one of the worst things I'd ever done in my life. And I regret that to this day. But I was still thinking, boy, I was able to have a choice. But eventually, I met a person, my significant other, who was Catholic, and I'd been wanting to go to the Catholic Church, but that had been holding me back. And then I said, well, let's do this thing. Let's go. and then I found out I had cancer. And not only did I have cancer, I had stage 4. All right. And so I really wanted to get into RIC. Because I'd been going to church for about 4 months before that revelation came down, right? And anyway, and I'd called, and and it left a voicemail, and apparently David was on vacation, so he couldn't call me back. Or, I'm sure he was overwhelmed with all kinds of stuff. I called again and didn't get a return. So then I was at church, I was at Mass, and saw Father Richard afterwards. I said, Father Richard, I really want to get into RCIA. Please help me with this. How can I do that? And he said, well, just go in the ante room. I'll be right back. The place for the kids and so forth in front of the church. Well, he forgot me. Because he had a Mass right afterwards. Okay. I mean, I didn't know that. And so then I walked in. Next day, I said, okay, guys, I don't know how long my time is on this planet, but I would really like to be a Catholic when I depart. Everything came together. David called me, and then next thing I knew, Father Richard says, well, you're going to be a Catholic in 2 weeks. And I was in the program, and I think I'd been to 2 classes when I was confirmed, but I kept going through chemo as much as I could, right? Because I wanted to learn, and it's a beautiful faith, and I met a lot of wonderful people, right? And I've really have felt cherished, even though, I haven't been able to come a lot because of a lot of things, like getting cancer again, my mother's dead, blah, blah, blah. And, but still, people brought me the host. I mean, Father Richard has come here, and, Deacon Michael has come here. I mean, so it's, that's pretty big. And a shout out to Beth Robinson, man. She is just absolutely wonderful. And so, what makes that okay? Or what makes having cancer again okay? Well, one will keep me mindful. But no, I have faith, honey. I'm not afraid of death. That's why it's okay. All right. That's because like as a medic, I saw things, all right, that were inexplicable. And I know that faith carries you through. See, that's the difference. Because it carried me through chemo. It carried me through a lot of things. Because I was some of the stuff made me have seizures, conscious seizures, and so forth. All right. But I always prayed through that, and it would pass. And I know I was better off having prayed than trying to chemically mediate something like that, And so yeah, I have faith that we'll find, something better, or that I'm going to maintain quality of life. And and celebrate life until I don't. And I sound flippant, but I'm not. I know. I've been I got really sick one time. I have a pretty good idea of what that's like, and I've seen enough of it. That's for sure. Right. So having an abortion, I had one when I was really young. I already had one child out of wedlock. I was pregnant again, and I'd really done my best not to get pregnant, but I was using natural means, and so when you do natural things, you have natural results. So, and I rationalized there again, that this was no child, this wasn't an individual, it's a clump of cells, right? That's how you have, and that's what you have to do if you're going to have an abortion. You have no choice. But but that's all that is rationale, and that would I'd think about that child, and it would bring tears up to my eyes, and they're like, oh, it was the only thing you could have done. Well, really, in retrospect, probably not. Right. So the reason I mention all that is that's what kept me from going to St. Gabe's, because I was all right. It really did. It's like, well, I've had this choice. Do I take the choice away? Then it occurred to me after listening and reading and so forth, that I eliminated choice for someone else. And was that my right? I don't think so. So, not at all. Because, so St. Gabe's. All right, so why would I think about St. Gabe's? Well, I'm a retired paramedic, and I've worked with military people, and I've done a lot of historical reading and so forth. And who doesn't love a warrior priest? Okay. So, and I went to the first sermon, and I was in because it was the passion, the sincerity, the fire, all of those things. And Father Richard, you do it. You bring it, babe. So that's what a lot of us need. And there again, growing up as Episcopalian, the majority of the priests we had a very dry sense of humor, very intellectual, and just fun to be around. Was I moved spiritually by them? Clearly not, or I would have been there. Okay, I mean that is just the truth and the way it is. And like I said, Sister Claire gave me my start. Let there be no doubt. She was just one of the most remarkable people in my life. And then Father Richard really kind of reminded me of her because of that passion, because of that enthusiasm, and that active, very palatable embrace of God. Right, Jesus. I know. And see, I had never heard a priest do that before. Talk about Jesus as a friend, or certainly he's our leader, he's our father, he's our prince, he's our king, all of those things. But one with compassion, one that's reachable. So I'm at a crossroads. So I have my faith life will always be here. Like the very little, I have a small little ministry in which I send people verses, the verse of the day, to keep everybody on the path, so to speak, and to lift people up, I hope, or give them that right message at that right time, because I hear that a lot too, right? But that's small. That's small. And I would love to be able to participate more in community stuff, but I have my significant other lives at the beach, right? And he really wants me to come down there. And I really I've got some things to do, but I would love to maybe talk to young girls about abortion. You don't have to do that. I'm a massage therapist. I'd rub their feet or whatever until they gave birth. It would not bother me. It would be my chance to serve. That would be fine with me, right? And I've talked to people about faith, and the other thing is I've mentored people with cancer too. To say, all right, whoa, stop, don't. One, you have to stop and think about this. Yes, you have this diagnosis, but let's talk to more than one person about it, please. And then and God. So that's another way. And by the way, we do have a lifeline here. So, I mean, there's so many different. That's what I would love.
I love that you have.
That's right. You have to keep looking. You have to keep searching. So that's exactly right. So if I was a child, if I had one a child, you're going to be angry, but. That was the only Episcopalian, like I felt like that was the only church, and I had been betrayed. That's how I felt. And like I said, of course, right, the family dynamics weren't great either. So, but I wish I had known, right? And we used loosely call them Jesus freaks. Now, this is in the 60s and 70s, right? And I wish I'd listened more to those people, right? I really do. And there have been opportunities along the way that I missed. And but it brings me to here. So maybe it's all by design. So I'm not going to worry about that person at this point because I'm here now. And I think that's another thing that we need to be probably a little bit more of that, because you can forever beat yourself up about things you did, but you have control of what you do going forward.